This case would later be regarded as one of the most disturbing in Novosibirsk history, not because of the victims themselves, but because of the identity of the individual who was eventually detained. Back in November 1998, however, that revelation was still far off. It began with an ordinary teenager searching through a landfill on the outskirts of the city, near the Coca-Cola plant. Looking for anything useful, he moved a sheet of rusted metal and discovered the head of a victim. Law enforcement arrived about an hour later. The scene immediately presented an unusual picture. Near the discovery, stones had been arranged in a circle. Sticks were planted in the ground, forming arrow-like shapes, and marks resembling a pentagram were visible on the skin. Experts determined the victim was a woman, aged approximately 20 to 30. No identification was possible, no documents, no clothing, no other remains. Only the head and these surrounding symbols. The initial theory pointed to a ritualistic act involving occult practices. In the late 1990s, reports of similar incidents appeared regularly, so investigators were not surprised by the concept itself. What stood out was how openly the scene had been arranged. The discovery was not concealed. It seemed deliberately displayed. A case was opened. Officers canvassed the area, questioned factory workers, local residents, and homeless individuals. No one had seen or heard anything. The victim was never identified. Weeks later, the case was archived. A strange, isolated incident with no leads. At that time, no one in Novosibirsk realized this was only the beginning. In spring 1999, similar discoveries began appearing one after another. First, on the left bank of the Ob River in Dakar communities, mushroom pickers came across fragments of remains. The pattern was familiar. A female victim, remains separated into parts and wrapped in the hood of her own jacket, with the same markings on the skin and arrows pointing in different directions. A month later, another set of fragments was found in a forested area near Dolmacheva. Same pattern, separated remains, hood wrapping, symbols, and a nearby homemade amulet made of wire and cloth. By summer 2000, the count had reached 10 incidents. Landfills, quarries, roadsides across the city and suburbs. The signature remained consistent. Separated remains, occult-like symbols, deliberate display. In several cases, the heart was absent from the remains. Investigators identified a common link. All the victims had been vulnerable women working along a notorious stretch of Vatutina Street in the Kurovsky district, known throughout Novosibirsk as the Drunk Road. Media reports first referred to a Novosibirsk perpetrator, later speculating about involvement of satanic groups. The theory seemed plausible: pentagram-like marks, missing hearts, ritual amulets. The women grew afraid to work the area, but most had come from rural villages with no documents, no money, and no alternatives. The disappearances continued. By late 2000, it was clear a serial offender was active in the city. The only question was, who? In 2001, all incidents were finally combined into a single investigation, and a task force was formed. The goal was clear: build a profile of the person responsible and identify him among hundreds of thousands of residents. Criminologists worked with what they had. The ritualistic elements suggested someone with occult interests, possibly a lone individual obsessed with mysticism. The symbols, amulets, and altered remains did not fit typical criminal patterns. 2 composite sketches were created, but they differed significantly. Witnesses had seen different men with victims at different times. Neither sketch provided certainty. Hundreds of individuals were checked. Members of fringe groups, occult enthusiasts, those with serious prior convictions. Particular attention was given to anyone connected to the drunk road. Drivers, regular clients. Dozens of women were interviewed. But descriptions of suspicious men varied. The investigation hit a wall. No identifiable biological evidence existed with the technology available at the time. Witnesses were inconsistent. Many victims, transient women without documentation, remained unidentified. One thing was clear. The offender knew the environment well, where to find victims, how to approach them, how to vanish. Evgeny Chuplinsky was born on March 14, 1965, in Novosibirsk. Ordinary family, ordinary school, average grades, nothing remarkable. In 1984, he was drafted into the border troops of the KGB. There, unexpectedly, he excelled. Top marks in combat and political training, proficient in combat sambo, earned commendations. Yet fellow servicemen regarded him warily, calling him a hidden hypocrite, overly helpful, overly correct, overly eager to please superiors. After the army, Chuplinsky joined the police, working in non-departmental security in the Kirovsky district. Calm job, patrolling, guarding facilities, night shifts. He rose to sergeant. Colleagues nicknamed him Chupa Chups, a play on his surname and his friendly, smiling, always helpful demeanor. Over 15 years of service, no disciplinary actions, only commendations. He married, divorced, remarried, divorced again. In 1997, a medical examination revealed he had contracted a sexually transmitted infection from a woman he had encountered. The second marriage ended because of it. In 1998, Chuplinsky bought a used white Lada Samara, a Vosmerka, and began moonlighting as a private driver. His routes often took him through the Kirovsky district, including Vatutina Street, the drunk road. That stretch fell within his patrol area. Night after night, he drove past the women standing along the roadside, knew many by sight, some by name. His relationships with them were distinctive. Unlike other officers, Chuplinsky did not harass the women, demand money, or threaten them. Instead, he talked to them, asked about their lives, sometimes gave rides. The women considered him their officer, safe, almost a protector. Officially, he registered several as informants to gather intelligence on local crime. In practice, it gave him constant access and legitimate reasons for contact. Among colleagues, rumors circulated. Chuplinsky was protecting the women, taking a cut, spending excessive time on the drunk road, more than duty required. In 2000, he was transferred to the Leninsky district, officially, at his own request. Unofficially, everyone understood. It was due to the rumors. Chuplinsky accepted the transfer without protest and continued serving calmly. He kept the white Lada and the side job. Meanwhile, women continued to disappear from the drunk road. In 2003, at age 38, Chuplinsky retired on pension for length of service. The send-off was warm. A medal for distinguished service, second degree, 46 commendations. An exemplary officer. By then, he had married for the third time to a dentist whose father was a prominent local businessman. His father-in-law helped with housing, an apartment in an elite building on Rimsky-Korsakov Street, near the city center, and with business. Chuplinsky opened a chain of small stores selling metal wall decorations, forged panels, decorative grills, souvenirs. The business was profitable. He continued driving his Lada as a side job, a habit from the 1990s. Neighbors spoke of him glowingly, a kind-hearted man who painted flowers on hallway walls, walked his pedigree poodle, participated in community cleanups. Once he saved a woman threatening to jump from a bridge, pulled her back, drove her home, calmed her. 2 young daughters, a loving wife, stable income, community respect. None of the neighbors suspected that, over the years, the man next door had been responsible for the deaths of more than a dozen women. The white Lada that carried regular passengers was the last thing many victims ever saw. On June 18, 2004, 20-year-old Maria Shumilova left home to visit a hospital. She had a leg in a cast and crutches. She needed a bandage removed after a fracture. She reached the train station on her own, then decided to hitch a ride, easier than taking a bus with crutches. She got into a car. She never returned home. Her mother raised the alarm. Days later, on July the 7th, a missing person report was filed. Investigators quickly learned that in recent months, Maria had been working the drunk road to earn money for treatment. A key detail emerged. The night she disappeared, a new SIM card, registered to Evgeny Chuplinsky, was inserted into her phone. He was located quickly. Former police sergeant, pensioner, private driver. He was detained for questioning. Chuplinsky remained calm and offered a simple explanation. "I drive privately. I picked up some guys. They tried to rob me, fled, and dropped the phone. I picked it up. I don't know the girl. I've never seen her." The story sounded unconvincing, but there was no hard evidence. Maria was never found. The phone was the only link. He spent 3 months in pretrial detention, interrogations, checks, examinations, but nothing conclusive. He was released for lack of evidence. After release, Chuplinsky returned to normal life: stores, family, private driving. Outwardly, nothing changed. But something had shifted in the investigation. Officers working Maria's case reviewed old files, compared dates, locations, and circumstances, and realized Chuplinsky had lied. He claimed no knowledge of the missing woman, yet Maria had worked the very stretch he had patrolled for years. The same area where he had informants. Colleagues' old recollections resurfaced, rumors of protection rackets, excessive contact with the women. Too many coincidences, still no proof. Then something else happened. Some of the women told investigators that after Chuplinsky's release, he began reappearing in his white Lada, approaching them, asking odd questions. "Were you questioned? What did they ask? Did they mention me?" He was openly checking how close the investigation had come. In June 2005, on the outskirts of Novosibirsk, another set of fragments was discovered, the last in the series. After that, the discoveries stopped. In 2006, all incidents were officially combined into one case. It was acknowledged. A serial offender had been active in Novosibirsk. The task force re-examined everything: dozens of incidents, hundreds of witness statements, thousands of checked individuals. One name kept surfacing: Evgeny Chuplinsky. The coincidences formed a chain. He worked the drunk road, where victims disappeared. He knew many personally. He owned a car. Witnesses said victims were taken away in vehicles. He was caught with a missing woman's phone and talked his way out on weak evidence. They decided to detain him again, this time as a suspect in the entire series. Searches were thorough: apartment, garage, car. In one garage, a cadaver dog was brought in. The dog circled one spot, whined, but gave no clear indication. The floor was dug up, walls tapped, nothing. Czuplinski was held for months, questioned repeatedly. He did not break. He maintained his story. "I know nothing. I never harmed anyone. The phone was coincidence." No direct evidence. DNA technology at the time could not analyze the old samples. Witnesses could not identify him with certainty. He was released a second time. After the second release, the series stopped completely. No new discoveries in 2007, 2008, or later. Two theories. Either he had passed away or been imprisoned for something else, or he realized he was under scrutiny and went dormant. Czuplinski continued his ordinary life. Business running, family intact, daughters growing. Neighbors still saw him as a model citizen. He even participated in charity, helped animal shelters, donated to city events. The investigation remained open, but effectively frozen. Over 5,000 people checked, 8,000 witnesses interviewed, 300 examinations conducted. Zero result. The suspect list was narrowed to 18. Czuplinski was among them, but no proof of his guilt existed. Years passed. 2010, 2012, 2014. The case gathered dust in archives. Czuplinski turned 50. He still lived on Rimsky-Korsakov Street, drove the same white Lada, smiled at neighbors. In the basements of forensic labs, samples waited, samples that would soon speak. In 2014, a modern molecular genetic laboratory opened at the Novosibirsk Investigative Committee. Everything changed. Previously, biological traces from crime scenes could only determine blood type, insufficient for individual identification. Now full DNA profiles could be built, even from old, degraded samples. Cold cases were revisited. The pentagram series was among the first. Months of work, extracting genetic material from evidence stored since the late 1990s. Victims' clothing, items found nearby. In several incidents, a consistent profile emerged. One individual had left traces at multiple scenes. This confirmed what was already suspected. One person was behind the entire series. Now they needed a match in the database, which contained samples from everyone ever checked in the case. Thousands, including one taken from Evgeny Czuplinski in 2004 during his first detention. Comparison began in early 2016. In April 2016, a local officer visited Czuplinski's home for a routine procedure, a new biological sample for testing, standard for anyone previously involved in old cases. Czuplinski complied calmly, gave the swab, said goodbye, closed the door. From that moment, he later admitted, he stopped sleeping, pacing the apartment at night, restless. He understood this time was serious. Results came weeks later. DNA from one victim's clothing, match. Traces from two more incidents, match. The profile belonged to Evgeny Alexandrovich Czuplinski, born 1965. On April 23, 2016, he was arrested, with evidence. DNA does not lie. Probability of random match, 1 in several billion. A businessman and father of 2 was now in a detention cell. Charges, 17 counts, later rising to 19. 18 years had passed since the first discovery at the landfill. For the first time, investigators had a real chance to learn the truth. The first month in detention, Czuplinski denied everything, demanded a lawyer, complained about conditions. Meanwhile, the media exploded. The suspect was a former police officer. Siberian perpetrator. Satanist in uniform. Journalists dug up his biography, photos, address. His family came under siege. His wife stopped leaving home. Daughters were pulled from school after classmates learned whose father he was. Strangers appeared near the apartment. Neighbors who once greeted him warmly now turned away. His wife sought psychiatric help. Panic attacks had begun. Investigators used this pressure. They explained, cooperate, and the family would be protected. Witness protection program, new documents, relocation. Refuse, and they would face the public alone. Czuplinski remained silent for weeks. Then he requested a meeting. On June 2, 2016, he signed a pretrial agreement promising full cooperation in exchange for family protection, and began talking. Interrogations were recorded on video, with counsel and witnesses present. He spoke in detail. How he met women on the drunk road, offered rides or company, drove them to remote locations in his white Lada. What happened next was checked against case files. He named locations unknown to investigators. His descriptions of scene layouts matched inspection reports. He pointed out details only the perpetrator could know. Over 20 site visits were conducted. Reenactments, verification of statements. His accounts aligned with injuries documented on remains. He confessed to 29 incidents, 10 more than investigators knew. Some could not be confirmed. No remains found, but 19 were fully corroborated. Regarding Maria Shumilova, the one with the phone, he said he disposed of her remains from the Dmitrievsky Bridge into the Ob. That explained why she was never found. The scale became clear. 7 years of active incidents, possibly over 30 victims. Investigators asked the central question, why? His answers varied, depending on the incident, his mood, the questioner. Sometimes, the women carried sexually transmitted infections. He learned this afterward and became enraged. It was a sensitive topic for him. Other times, he was cleansing society of contamination, doing a public service, removing filth from the streets. Investigators noted he was seeking justification, minimizing guilt, portraying himself not as a predator, but almost as a sanitizer. None of these explanations accounted for the pentagram-like marks, missing hearts, amulets, the ritual staging that had misled the investigation for years. Was he a Satanist? Did he believe in the occult? Or was it imitation? He evaded direct answers, didn't remember details, was in an altered state, didn't want to discuss it. The question remained open until trial. In January 2017, Czuplinski was sent to Moscow's Serbsky Institute for psychiatric evaluation, crucial for determining sanity. If deemed insane, he would go to a psychiatric facility rather than prison, with different conditions and possible future release. The evaluation lasted weeks. Review of biography, behavior, testing, observation. Conclusion: no chronic or temporary mental disorder, no diminished capacity. He was fully accountable for the charged acts. This ruled out insanity. The ritual elements were not psychotic delusions. The missing hearts were not the product of a disordered mind. He had acted rationally. But then, why the elaborate staging? Why spend time on symbols and amulets? Why display rather than conceal? A sane person acts with purpose. What was his? Czuplinski was returned to Novosibirsk. The case went to trial. On December 14, 2017, proceedings began in Novosibirsk Regional Court. Czuplinski requested a jury trial, his legal right for especially serious crimes. 12 ordinary Novosibirsk citizens were selected to decide the fate of the former officer. Unexpectedly, Czuplinski retracted all confessions, claiming they were given under duress. Investigators threatened his family, said they would visit his daughters at school and reveal everything. He had incriminated himself only to protect his loved ones. Defense moved to exclude the confessions. Prosecution objected. All interrogations were video recorded with witnesses. No evidence of coercion. 3 months of hearings. Witnesses, experts, physical evidence, DNA results, reenactment reports, scene inspection protocols. Jurors viewed videos, heard testimony, examined photographs. On February 28, 2018, the jury deliberated and returned. Guilty on all 19 counts. Unanimous. No leniency recommended. On March 6, 2018, Judge Lyudmila Belyukova pronounced sentence: life imprisonment in a special regime colony, plus compensation of 1 million rubles each to 4 victims' representatives who filed civil claims. Czuplinski listened silently. Afterward, to journalists, "I will appeal." Defense appealed to the Supreme Court, citing procedural violations and statute of limitations on some early incidents. 1998 crimes had a 15-year limit. On September 11, 2018, the Supreme Court overturned the verdict and remanded for retrial. The second trial was faster. Same evidence, new jury, same result. November 22, 2018, life sentence again. Another appeal. May 29, 2019, Supreme Court upheld the sentence. Final. Czuplinski was 54. The rest of his life behind bars. September 15, 2019. Transfer across the country from Novosibirsk to Khabarovsk region. Settlement of Elban, Correctional Colony No. 6. Unofficially, Snezinka, Snowflake. One of Russia's harshest facilities for life-sentenced inmates. Strict isolation, 2-person cells, concrete exercise yards, minimal outside contact. There he will spend his remaining days. Statistically, life-sentenced inmates in Russia live 10 to 15 years post-sentencing. His wife and daughters had already left Novosibirsk, changed names, relocated. Contact continues, per his lawyer, but rarely. In 2023, he was brought back to Novosibirsk to check possible links to other unsolved disappearances. In 2024, another victim, missing since 2003, was identified after 20 years. During one 2016 interrogation, when he was still cooperating, an investigator asked directly, "Why the pentagrams? Why the amulets? Why all the occult staging?" He answered. He deliberately left the symbols to mislead the investigation. No Satanism, no rituals, no belief in the supernatural, pure calculation. As a former officer with 15 years in the system, he knew how investigations worked, knew they built theories around motive. He provided a false motive that would send them searching in the wrong direction. In the late 1990s, stories of satanic cults were widespread across Russia. Investigators were primed for ritual crimes. Czuplinski exploited that. While the entire Novosibirsk police hunted occultists, he wore the uniform, patrolled the drunk road, greeted colleagues, received alerts about himself. Every pentagram was a false clue, every amulet a decoy. He displayed the scenes deliberately, so they would be found, the symbols seen, and the search sent nowhere. It worked. He nearly succeeded. Had modern DNA technology not emerged a decade after the last incident, he would have died a free man. Neighbors still praising his kindness, daughters never knowing. Science caught up. The system had been hunting a monster. and the monster had been part of the system, knowing its weaknesses better than anyone. Today, Evgeny Chuplinsky is serving a life sentence in Snezinka colony. He is 60. By law, he may petition for parole after 25 years, earliest 2043, when he would be 78. Chances are virtually zero. In Novosibirsk, unsolved disappearances remain. Investigators do not rule out more victims. Of the 19 proven cases, 11 women are still unidentified. No reconstructed faces, no relatives, if any exist, aware of their fate. In his cell, rumors say, he has begun writing a book, an autobiography. Perhaps one day we will learn more. But the main truth is known. He was not possessed. He was a calculating predator who misled his former colleagues for years and lost only because DNA technology proved more patient than he was. What do you think of this case? Share in the comments, like, subscribe, and see you next time.